Clive Barker Podcast, A-Z Commentaries.
Thanks to your generous donations to our Kickstarter funding campaign,
Clive Barker Podcast presents Fundraiser 9.
Celebrations!
Welcome to episode 365 of the Clive Barker Podcast. Well, good evening, Jose.
Hi, Ryan. How you doing?
Hey, good. And we have a special guest, Catalina Querida from Little Spark Films.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
Hey, well, happy to have you again. So we are revisiting Clive Barker's A to Z of horror on the chapter Y for Year Zero, and the recommendation, the Alan Moore comic adaptation in movie form, right, from Hell, from 2001, from the Hughes brothers, Albert and Alan Hughes.
That's right. It's one of those, it was the first adaptation, I believe, from an Alan Moore work or graphic novel. I have the graphic novel, I have the companion to the graphic novel, and I have the movie on DVD. This one says limited edition director's cut. And 2 hours and 2 minutes. And I'm a kind of a big fan of Alan Moore. And
so does Alan Moore really like this movie?
Oh, no, not at all. No.
Does he rave about it and talk about how proud he is about
I'll tell you what. He didn't want to receive any money over the adaptation of any of his works to movies. In fact, he actually put a curse on the Watchmen film, according to certain articles. Yeah. And this one, if you've read the graphic novel, you can see that it's so different.
Yeah. I was saying I've read half of it, and I'm just like, literally none of this is in the movie. And it kind of stinks because that's what ends up happening to Alan Moore adaptations, is that they're incredibly difficult to adapt to a film.
But people say, well, this is really popular and we need to make money off of this, or we need to make a movie. So I guess my question is then, if he hates these movie adaptations so much, how do they get the rights to make them in the first place?
Well, I know for The Watchmen, it was Dave Gibbons gave the rights.
Right. In this case, I think Eddie Campbell, who was the artist. Well, I think the first time they were thinking about adapting this, I think Alan Moore was kind of on board because it was the first time this was being done. And so he even had an idea to get Sean Connery to be Inspector Aberline. And,
man, that would've been awesome.
Yeah. That didn't happen, but Sean Connery ended up playing in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, right?
Oh, God. Another comic book movie, though.
Another comic book movie written by Alan Moore, the original graphic novel. Terrible adaptation again.
Oh, that movie was a real stinker.
Oh,
yeah.
So silly.
Yeah.
It is so silly.
It's very silly. The graphic novels are much better than the movie. But so I think at this point he was kind of like thinking, well, let's give it a go. But then that's when he realized that, no, this is never going to work. So after that, it was kind of like Clive Barker signing up to make Rawhead Rex. And then realizing that I got to do this myself. Or Transmutations.
Transmutations first, right?
Yeah, but
then let's try it again with Rawhead Rex.
Well, yeah. Rawhead Rex was an order of magnitude better, though, than Transmutations.
Yeah.
Which isn't saying much.
I know, it is. It's true. And we put it on the other day to just kind of like have on in the background. Yeah. And I'm like, it's so hokey, but there are some good things about it. Like, I think that, they cared or they were trying, but they were just hitting the monster movie angle so hard.
Oh, yeah. Well, and Clive Barker didn't like the costume. And when he told him that, they locked him, they kicked him off the set and didn't allow him to come back on the set again.
Oof.
Yeah.
In this case, I think with Alan Moore, he just saw the writing on the wall. He saw how things work when it comes to movie making adaptations. And I think he just decided to nip it in the bud and just say, hey, if you guys adapt any of my works in the future, just take my name off it, give the money to everybody else involved in the production or the other artist that I did this with. I don't want anything to do with it. So from then on, it just became that way. And I don't think his name is even in this movie. I'll have to check that in the credits. But Watchmen and all those like adaptations never really had Alan Moore's name in it.
I think that I liked the V for Vendetta adaptation. Like I know why they made the changes they made. Like it made sense to me. I am not going to say anything about Watchmen because I can ramble about that for forever. But
sure.
The Watchmen was the first Alan Moore that I had ever read. So like, you get kind of like attached to your book, especially if it's the first time or the first one that you've read from a specific author.
It seems like those superheroes are all jerks, though, aren't they? In the
Watchmen? Oh, they're awful.
That's the point.
Yeah, I know, but they're
very human.
I know. I just don't like it. I don't like characters that you can't relate to.
Yeah. It was his take on. I recommend
the book. Yeah, it talks more about why these people are the way they are. I mean, it's not really an excuse because they are terrible, awful people. But yeah, it's just it's different.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got the movie paused at the 20th Century logo. As usual, if you want to watch the movie while we're talking, we can do a little countdown and you can click play on the 20th Century logo. So are you guys all lined up?
Yes.
Yep. Ready when you are.
I think I'll do the countdown today. Okay. And 3, 2, 1, play. And there we go. My DVD just skipped a little bit, but it's fine.
And I paused for a couple of seconds while I didn't know it was going to pause while I put the subtitles on.
Starting again. One day men will look back.
Okay.
So is that a real quote from him? Did he actually say that in a note or something?
No, that's not a Jack the Ripper quote. That comes from the graphic novel.
So yeah, I don't think that they could actually quote anything to him because, I mean, it's still undiscovered, right? Who he is.
Did he not write any letters with his
He wrote
victims
letters
or anything?
He did write letters. Okay.
Yeah. So
I have
the expectation is that this was a quote from a letter, but it's not a real quote.
I have another question. I mean, and I'm not gonna say what the spoiler ending yet, but I do want to. I am curious. Is this when he made this comic book? Is this like a JFK kind of a conspiracy theory of who the Jack the Ripper was, or is this all totally just made up?
It's a mixture of both. So this is a fictional work. So we don't know who the killer was.
Well, I was
obviously,
thinking
it's not
like the movie JFK. That's a theory, but it doesn't. Right. It's not necessarily true.
Well, Alan Moore took some stuff from a book by a guy called Stephen Knight that was the first Ripper kind of biographer, a Ripperologist, let's call it, that brought in the possibility of a relationship between the royal family and the murders and the Masons. Yeah. But then it ended up, being discredited eventually. So he just used that as a springboard to create this fictional story.
I see. Okay. Well, looking at this movie too, it feels like it's a really violent movie, but all of the violence really happens off camera, like just to the side, or you're looking at somebody's reaction instead of looking at the body, kind of a thing.
Sure. Yeah. The real life violence that happened with these 5 canonical murders was much, much worse. They had to tone a lot of it down for the movie, even when they bring up like there's a part where the coroner is reading what happened and stuff, and they kind of cut that stuff down.
Yeah.
So the beautiful slums of London.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say because in the excerpt from A to Z, since that's the most recent thing I've read, mm-hmm. He does speak a lot specifically about the violence. Was that correct?
Yeah.
I was just reading the subtitles and it said urinating.
So there's Polly and Mary Kelly and Mary Kelly is played by Graham. And you might notice that she looks way too good to be a prostitute in London.
Well, yeah, and compared to the other women that are her friends, she's not the one. It seems like it's set up right away that she's the one we're supposed to identify with, versus these other ones that are kind of, I don't know.
Yeah. Also, she's not a very good prostitute because you never see her actually getting any clients.
Right.
Like she just told a guy to piss off because he wanted to pay her for sex.
Well, it was just a penny. Maybe she didn't want to waste her time on a penny.
Right.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Looking for a higher up client.
And
the real reason
she's the
is
only
that
one that's smart too, right? The other ones are all pretty dumb.
That's true. The reason why I think she's not seen like the other ones, prostituting herself is because for some reason, they decided it was a good idea for this movie to turn her into a love interest for Inspector Eberlein, which never...
That's not in the comic?
No. And it wasn't in real life either. There's a lot of... Yeah. This is based on a real life case, and a lot of stuff is just so wrong in this movie. Like Inspector Eberlein was never like he wasn't a psychic. He didn't go to opium dens. They mixed together two characters in Johnny Depp's character in this movie, Robert Lees, who was a psychic, and Inspector Eberlein. And of course, they made him much younger than Inspector Eberlein as well. So it starts becoming a little, jarring to see. Okay, so if you're not going to follow the graphic novel or historical fact, then what are you doing with this story?
Yeah.
Making something that people want to watch.
Yeah.
And people definitely don't, care about historical facts or following the graphic novel.
And speaking of historical facts, then did these prostitute women all know each other in real life? Were they really like friends or whatever?
No, I don't think so. They might have lived in the same neighborhood of Whitechapel. So who knows? Maybe they did know each other. But there's no reason to believe that they were friends or that they spent time in a group together. We saw them sleeping in a bench with like a rope tied under their arms. It was called a doss house. And that was for really extremely poor people. So they could just put you all in one bench, tie a rope so you wouldn't fall over while sleeping. And the reason why these women were so poor, of course, is because not only were they prostitutes who had, were being exploited by their pimps, also they drank all their money away. They were alcoholics and had addictions. Which again, you look at her and she doesn't look like she drinks or anything. Her skin is flawless.
Yeah.
And so their friend here has a baby, and she says her husband, Albert, is coming to visit. And which is strange because you're going to find out who this Albert is. He's the grandson of Queen Victoria.
Right.
And and it's funny that nobody recognizes him. She doesn't know who he is. She doesn't, It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like you had just pictures of people all over the place.
That's true. That you bring a great point for people. For the
a lot of people been drinking a lot.
For the common Londoner, probably never got to see the king or the queen except from afar when they came out for special occasions. Netley, he's going to be the coach writer for our royal,
And that
people.
guy behind him is like that. He's like a Scotland Yard or what? I forget. What is their affiliation? There's some kind of protectors of the royal family, right?
Yeah, they're probably like a Masonic brother or something like that. And of course, being a movie from the MTV generation, I guess, they have to make sex has to be like in slow motion and look really good and be well lit. as Prince Albert. You know about the piercing, Prince Albert? So here's a bit of trivia. Queen Victoria's husband, Albert, was supposed to have been the first guy who got a Prince Albert piercing. That's where the name comes from.
Oh.
Did not know that.
Yep.
I mean,
the more you know.
What is that piercing?
Well, it's a genital piercing. It goes on the penis. It goes on the tip of the penis.
Ew. Okay.
Yeah. So what's going on here is these unidentified men are taking this woman. She doesn't know she's actually married. She is Catholic, and she married Prince Albert in a Catholic ceremony. She doesn't even know it's Prince Albert, and she had a baby.
She had a baby, so he's the royal family now.
Yes,
and they're all pretty upset about it.
That's right. That's right. That's what's going to kickstart this whole thing, at least according to this story. And now she's stuck with a baby.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But yeah, so she's still holding the baby, but later on they say the baby is gone and they took her somewhere. So, like, who took her when? I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, let's keep watching the movie. Maybe they'll explain that. If not, it's just an easy way of getting rid of the baby.
Yeah.
And, of course, Mary Kelly having the baby also keeps her away from the streets and away from getting clients, which, again, keeps her kind of chaste and pure to be Aberline's love interest.
And to save her from being the potential last victim.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good pan to the gargoyle.
Yeah. Because he's from hell.
Yeah, about that.
It was a nice dissolve.
Yeah.
This is like a Masonic ceremony. Or
sorry, I had to pull out the IMDb for some of these people. I'm like, I know their faces.
Sorry, actually, this is not a Masonic ceremony. This is like the opium den.
Yeah.
This is where we're going to find Inspector Aberline. Another bit of trivia that this movie gets wrong is that these opium dens didn't come from China into Britain. Britain already had opium. They had what was called laudanum.
Right.
And actually, Britain exported opium to China and got people, and it became kind of like an epidemic of addiction there. Look up the Opium Wars. That was actually a thing between China and England. England said, China said, we want you guys to stop, selling opium to us. We're going to make it forbidden in China. And the English were like, no, we're going to keep doing that.
Oh, wow.
And then at the time, China would export rhubarb to England. And rhubarb has a laxative property. And so China threatened to stop giving them rhubarb. And so all the British would die of constipation. So that didn't happen.
That's great.
Oh, my God.
Here's the Bobbies coming for Aberline.
So he said, I already paid. I guess he's like, he pays protection money to the police?
Yeah. That's what they're implying.
So the police are corrupt.
Yeah. I mean, everybody was corrupt.
Yeah.
So opium dens were more popular definitely in America than in Britain, for the reasons that we've stated before. But San Francisco, Chinatown, a lot of opium dens there back in the day. And here we're going to find out that he's a hotshot detective.
Yeah. And It's funny that this guy is like is just an opium addict, and yet he's like in charge of all the police.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a detective. He's not, he's not the head of the police.
Well, he sure seems like it when he's lecturing them all about how to handle the case.
Yeah, that's another thing. They make him really important.
Yeah.
He's the protagonist. Usually in the original graphic novel, the protagonist everything is seen through the eyes of Sir William Gull. Mm. And here they made it be, Aberline. Who
right,
again
that's what I was confused about, since I haven't, I've read quite a bit of it, but I haven't finished it. I'm like, this character isn't that big of a character, it doesn't feel like.
Yeah, he was just a regular middle-aged detective,
right?
Kind of balding, probably a little fat, who went on to live his days until 1929. And then this movie, of course, they make it like a big thing, like, oh no, at the end he's going to be found dead in an opium den with 2 coins in his hand. And by the way, we're spoiling the whole thing, so.
Mm-hmm.
And he has these weird visions.
Well, I guess they were going like, detective, Sherlock Holmes sort of thought process, maybe.
Yeah. This is the most sensitive corner I've ever seen.
Yeah. He's like, dead bodies are gross.
Yeah, there's a bunch of parts where he almost pukes while looking at a dead body. It's like, buddy, you're supposed to be like doing this every day.
Yeah.
Ian Holm is
just the brutality that happened to the body.
Sure.
I have to say, though, I mean, this isn't my favorite movie in the world, but Ian Holm does a great job. And in fact, they fooled me all the way until the end with him.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And here's Winter from Hellraiser Deader. That's the actor who played Winter, remember?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I don't hate it.
Oh, Deader?
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Well, yeah, there's things about it that are good. Like the lead actress is really good. Carrie Werner.
Yeah.
She's great. But Jose pointed something out that I hadn't even noticed, that if you take out all of the scenes of her wandering around through hallways in dream sequences and stuff, the movie's only like 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
That's true.
40-something minutes long, yeah. I made a little cut for myself, and I was like, oh, okay, well, it's not a very interesting movie when you cut some of that part out, but it makes a lot more sense, and it flows better. So this is where they talk about lobotomies, but I'm not sure they're actually doing a lobotomy. In the commentary track, the guy says, oh, yeah, this is the lobotomy scene.
Yeah, it looks like he's screwing out a chunk of her forehead.
Yeah. So lobotomies came much later, but there were some early psychosurgery procedures. The Egyptians would release pressure in the brain by actually cutting into the skull and stuff like that.
Huh.
I think this guy is the one. This surgeon that's there is the one we're supposed to think is him, right? Is the Ripper.
Well, at this point, they're just showing a lot of sinister characters, right?
Yeah, but later on when he's confronted and he's saying, oh, it must be the Jews. And, he's like a real racist jerk. And so I think we're supposed to think, oh, that's got to be him.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, the Nichols gang is also introduced here in the story as a way of like making us think that they're the ones who killed her.
Yeah, but that one's too obvious.
Right.
But I think you're supposed to be commiserating with the people who are living in this town, trying to figure out. I mean, because really, these women are going to be the most concerned. There's someone who's killing, these women.
And it's the thing that I hate about this movie the most is that they've got no power to do anything. Like they can't even stay off the streets. They have to go more in the streets right now because they have no money.
Yeah, they got to work.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
speaking of which,
yeah. And so not only are they in danger, but they have to be in more danger. And they're
Right.
absolutely helpless against the Ripper.
and she's trying a tactic here where she's trying to get him to like do it just between her legs, but he's like, that's not in. Yikes. That was a rough life.
Yeah.
Really rough life. And here's the Nichols gang. It's a shame that these psychopaths and misogynists were, allowed to exploit these women for basically no reason other than to make money for themselves. It's always a disgusting.
And he had that weird, like, wrist-mounted, switchblade thing that would shoot out of his sleeve.
Yeah. Well, here's a threat. So
Yeah,
this
why
makes
is
us
he-
think.
Why she's trying to make money to give to him, and it fell on the ground, and he grabbed it. Why is he threatening to poke her eye out? He could just take the money.
Well, it's a way of putting pressure on them. Try to get a pound from each
Yeah.
a week or whatever. I guess they haven't been making a lot of money. And here's another moment where we see this. She's trying to comfort her, but she ends up actually like kind of breaking some boundaries here.
Yeah.
And that's not the first time this is going to happen.
Yep, and that's her death sentence.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. This is just kind of depressing, is really, I guess.
Yeah, Victorian London was depressing, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, this looks nice.
Yeah, I'm sure everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, like the red stagecoach interior and the shadow with the top hat. Eating grapes that were pretty expensive at the time.
So, actually, one thing that occurred to me when I was watching this last night that was bugging me is that if the inspector had only told them that he gives them grapes, they could have said, "Oh no," and run off as soon as they tried to hand him some grapes. Right? Because the Inspector Aberline knew that from the very first murder that there was like a grape little vine or whatever on the body.
Well, the first murder, he's just grabbed into an alley and killed. And this is the first one that has grapes. And I think he does bring that up at some point.
He doesn't tell the girls. He talks to his fellow inspector and stuff, but he never tells the other girls that. And so they all fall for the grapes, every single one of them.
But that's on purpose, maybe, because, I mean, it wasn't actually about protecting the women.
Yeah.
They didn't actually care about the women.
Except for Mary.
Well, yeah, but she's also someone who is, her life is also in danger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it didn't seem relevant because that might not have been necessarily the thing he would have on every murder. So that just meant that it was someone of a higher standing that could afford that.
He sees it like 3 times.
Yeah.
And
well, that's for the
3 is a
movie.
pattern, but 2 isn't.
That's just for the movie.
Well,
that's
I
just
think
a way
even 2 is a pattern.
Yeah. I mean, in the graphic novel, that's never really brought up that much.
Yeah.
But it's just an artifice in the movie where they're supposed to be like, oh, look, he's seen the grapes again.
Well, and only a rich person would offer grapes, so he must be well off.
Right. It's just one of those clues.
And it was a clue that was weird enough that if he was actually trying to keep them safe and wanted to protect them, he should have told them. I mean, he did. He tells them to go into a room and not leave. So why not tell them that?
Honestly, my theory is that it's because they're prostitutes, and if you put them in a room and tell them not to leave, then they can't go out and work.
Yeah,
I mean, they know that someone
really
is killing
take them off the
people,
street.
So he gave them money too. and food.
It's an interesting question, but it's also another question of like, you know, why didn't they have a cop on every street corner? It's just the story was written that way. And in this case, for the movie, they just keep bringing up the grapes, but, you know, wouldn't really change a thing even if he said them, hey, don't go for a guy who has grapes, you know?
Yeah, it would. As soon as they offered him grapes, they would go, "Oh my God, you're the killer," and they would run away.
At that point, they're already inside the stagecoach with him.
Yeah,
right.
Or at least they would have a little more of a chance. Because I think one of them, the coachman, gives her grapes and tells her to go like back in the alley or something. So at that point, she would have had plenty of time to say, "Oh God, it's the grapes," and run away.
Right. Here's the coroner with the weak stomach.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the other guy's already like, oh God, passes out on the floor.
He's like, "What's wrong with you?" And they goes, "Oh God, me too." Yeah,
coughs, gags.
Have you seen? There's a Saturday Night Live sketch where there's this doctor that keeps getting scared by his skeleton that he's got standing up.
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
Doctor's office. This reminds me of that.
If you find it, give me a link to YouTube. I'd love to watch it.
Oh yeah, I'll put that in the show notes.
And of course, even the coroner is gagging, but our man Johnny Depp and his other friend, they're just stoic. Yeah, I think the thing is, people think about the 5 canonical murders of Jack the Ripper, but the truth is that there were people getting murdered before these 5 murders, and there were people continuing being murdered after them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you know, just as gruesome murders. So what is really creepy is thinking that, oh, you know, he killed 5 women and he stopped. Did he? Mm-hmm. You know, do we know that for a fact? Why do we assume that he just stopped killing and that he didn't continue killing? He just stopped sending letters to Scotland Yard or whatever. I mean, it's makes you wonder, right?
Well, it's obviously because he got a lobotomy and he's in an asylum.
Right.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah. And those pictures on the wall, they're actual pictures of the victims from the Scotland Yard at the time, which is a little tasteless when you think about it.
Right.
They decided to put those in the set to unnerve the cast I better, you know, performance out of them.
I mean, they've been dead for like over 100 years. I'm sorry. I know that's terrible, but I mean, they don't care. And their families probably don't care.
And here's the Aberlane's boss, who's now going to come up with a whole bunch of xenophobic and racist and anti-Semitic suspicions about the murders.
And who is this guy? Is he like a mayor? What is his job?
No, he's
police commissioner.
Yeah, he's like the commissioner, right?
Is he? They never say. All we know is he's Johnny Depp's boss.
He's Sir Charles Warren, played by Ian Richardson. And if you want to know,
talking about the grapes.
Yeah.
So to him that's really a really important detail.
Well, I mean, yes, definitely, because specifically, I mean, like nobody just has those lying around. Not here.
Yeah.
So in answer to your question, Ryan, Sir Charles Warren was the chief commissioner of the Metropolitan Police.
Okay, there we go. There we have it.
Oh boy, this is where we go into this. Oh, you know, I can see, you know, it's like he can see what the Ripper sees, or he can get into the mind of the killer with the visions, which is just ridiculous that they added this trait to Aberline.
I wonder why that was. Like, why they decided to go with that idea.
Yeah, I guess it just makes the character of Eberlein more tormented and more interesting.
Or maybe also because it's a case that can't be solved, and so they had to give him a supernatural way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you see that blood red sky?
That's cool.
So I tracked the first draft of From Hell by Terry Hayes, the script, and it's interesting because they come up with Out of the Darkness. There's a title card. That's the first shot we see in the movie. This went through a lot of drafts, but the first draft said, in 1883, the volcano on the Indonesian island of Krakatoa erupted, showering the world with dust. As the debris fell slowly to earth, it led to a number of strange atmospheric effects. In 1888, the city of London witnessed increasingly bizarre sunsets, green and blood red skies.
Oh.
Anyway.
Huh.
Is that true?
So I guess... probably. I don't know. I didn't look up the Krakatoa volcano, but
yeah, I mean, we know that erupted, but I don't know if it, matches up with Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. Well, there was an eruption in 1883, so I don't know if the dust was around for years like that. Another thing here that's a little anachronistic is that he's listening to a gramophone. Gramophones were invented in May of 1888, but but I don't think he would have a gramophone in 1888 in his house because there was nothing published to play on a gramophone yet.
Oh.
Anyway, it's just one
probably
of those,
just some kind of prototype record of.
Yeah, it's one of those creative decisions that nobody's going to know that gramophones were created later that year. Who cares?
Is that a sugar cube that he's pouring the laudanum onto?
Oh, that's absinthe.
The sugar cube over the absinthe. That's the traditional way to do it, and then light it.
Yeah.
The laudanum, he's just adding for his own personal pleasure, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our friend Bart, I don't remember if y'all met him or not, but he is really into absinthe and like doing it all the correct way. And he like orders absinthe from France quite often. It's very fun.
Oh.
But not really, because you have to get used to the taste first.
Oh, yeah, I've tried absinthe. Nowadays, they mostly make it. It's more of a diluted form with anise liqueur.
Well, isn't absinthe a poison?
Well, it's not a poison. It's it has mild psychotherapy, psychoactive properties.
Yeah, but very mild, like really mild. Yeah.
If you could find real absinthe, real old style absinthe.
But it has to be made with the wormwood.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we see the sugar floating in the absinthe as he has his visions. Man, Eberlein was a lot more boring than this character. It's just some guy, man. Didn't do drugs, was never unfaithful to his wife, and died in 1929.
He doesn't even have a wife in this, right?
Right. He has a better Cockney accent here than in that Chocolat movie. He's trying to do an Irish accent in that one. It's not really that good.
Oh.
Have you watched Chocolat, Catalina?
It has been a really long time. Surprisingly, Joe introduced me to that one. You'd think that it would have been the other way around, but no, he really liked that one.
I don't think I've seen it.
Oh my God. And this is just sensationalist.
Yeah, they just want to say, like, look how crappy her coffin is because she's so poor.
And I figured they would be a little more shocked than that. I don't know what they told them to act like, but
yeah.
I've been in a funeral where people were carrying the coffin and the coffin fell on the floor. And it's like, it's everybody kind of gasps when that happens. They were going down some stairs, a few steps outside the church, and there were like 6 guys carrying a coffin, and one of them slipped and the coffin just fell on the floor.
Mm.
It's really, you feel really weird when that happens. The corpse didn't come out, but you know. So here we have Aberline meeting Mary Kelly. It looks very sexy in this scene, in a tormented addict kind of way. When are we going to get the Tim Burton biopic of Johnny Depp's life?
Oh man, I don't want to know any more about his life.
I don't either.
Yeah.
We know way too much about celebrity lives.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't want to know any of this. I don't care. Please. But I'm sure, Jose, in 25 years or so, we're going to get stuck with it no matter what.
Sure.
Right.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. But I agree. I don't know why so often in movies they shoehorn in some sort of like romance, as if like it absolutely has to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of unwritten rules about movies that people seem to think. Like I remember when I was a big fan of the James O'Barr comics, The Crow. And then when the movie came out and my friends and I all went to see it, and I was like, they gave him a weakness, right? It's like, oh, if you kill the crow, you kill the man. And I came out arguing with my friends, like, that's not what they did in the comics. He was invincible. And they're like, well, but then there'd be no conflict. You have to have, a movie has to have a conflict. I was like, no, it doesn't. They can make, the conflict is, that he's tormented because these people did this to him. So I don't know, this idea that, a movie has to have certain things to be a movie. Right. I just give it a try and see how it comes out.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with adaptations. They always have to come up with something different. And in this case, I think the really unnecessary thing is the love interest between Aberline and Mary Kelly, and just making Mary Kelly super cute. And
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and everybody just stomps all over these women.
Right.
Yeah. And that is how it is, or how it was.
Yeah,
I think
sure
there's
that's
a
probably
line
accurate.
Yeah.
I think there's a line in this movie that says, England doesn't have prostitutes, just has a big mass of unlucky women. Unfortunate women, yeah. Back in the day, I mean, this was a really messed up society. I mean, Victorian London was always seen as, very repressed and very, messed up society sexually. Young boys were taken to see prostitutes to have sex with them and become men, right? I mean, that's, instead of having their first time be with someone that they actually are in a relationship with, they would, start it off wrong and just go on from there. And sometimes they would get diseases as well. And it just kind of broke sexuality right at the beginning for men and women. Just because, proper society, women should just have sex for procreation. Yeah. And they shouldn't even enjoy sex. And if they argue too much, they would end up in a asylum.
So was the Ripper drinking blood right then? Was he putting blood into his drink?
I think it's supposed to be like wine, but they make it really dark that looks like blood. So I don't know. I think it's supposed to imply that double entendre that it might be blood.
Well,
although
they also imply cannibal. I mean, they come out and say that he ate one of their organs or something, right? In his letter to the inspector.
Right, that's true.
So I wonder if he's sort of ramping up his cannibalism.
Could be. I mean, we only really see that part with the glass and then the really raw meat.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, the Jack the Ripper is not really super fascinating to me, but...
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of people for decades who have, been hugely into the Jack the Ripper mythology.
Yeah, I imagine that it's part of the whole, like true crime fascination. And it's funny because I was watching and I finished, actually, even though I complained the whole time, I watched the entirety of The Staircase with Colin Firth and oh my God, I just blanked out on her name. I can see her face. But anyway, so it's about this man who was accused of throwing his wife down a staircase, and she died. But the whole case, it took like 15 or 20 years or something. Like, it was insane. And they made a documentary about it and blah, 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 all this stuff going on. And I'm sitting here and I'm watching it and I'm like, in my opinion, that dude totally killed his wife. Like, he was just, he was just done with it. Whatever.
Michael Peterson?
And the guy was like a fucking narcissist psychopath, and he was just making it look like he was the victim. And I'm sitting there, and I don't usually do true crime, and I'm trying to figure out, like, it's not I'm like, this is weird to me because these are real people. Like, these are actual, people's lives who got ruined. But for me, watching horror movies, it's all fake and it's made up.
Yeah.
So when it's made up, to me, it's more comfortable.
Yeah. And for me, it's even a step further. I want monsters, and I want it to be more fantasy than. Sure. I don't know. This real life stuff is just depressing to me. And
so you were talking about Michael Peterson and The Staircase?
Yes. Yeah. Michael Peterson. That was the name.
Right. Sorry, Ryan.
Well, and I think that seeing people that are helpless being sort of butchered.
Toni Collette.
I hate that.
Toni Collette was the wife.
Oh, yeah. Toni Collette. Got it. So what were you saying, Ryan?
Oh, just that movies where people are helpless and getting tortured and murdered and stuff. It's just, I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me. Actually, it bothers me.
Sure.
Interesting.
I can see that.
Yeah, yeah. But like I said, for me personally, it's the distinction of, is it real or is it fake? Because I mean, like, I love me some Hostel.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah.
Well,
although, I get it though. It's different. What do you find entertaining and what you don't?
Even even like Reservoir Dogs, right? When they've got that cop tied up and dancing around him and pouring gasoline on him and cutting off his ear. It's like, because he's sitting there helpless. And so I don't know. I just feel so empathetic to people like that.
Right,
when I first started doing burlesque, I desperately wanted to do a burlesque too. Stuck in the Middle, dressed up as Michael Madsen.
Yeah.
But I didn't think anybody would get it, so I never pursued that.
Oh.
I should have like a bag full of ears and just like throw it at people. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that might make it a little more apparent what you're doing.
We just saw the third murder.
Yeah.
So the canonical five are Marianne Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
I think this one was supposed to be Annie. I'm not sure. I think.
But I like this one in contrast to the other two. Is that first of all, it's bloodier. All these people are looking out into that blood was a really weird color. Sorry. All these people are looking out into the alleyway or whatever this is, this little area, which makes you kind of wonder, did anyone hear it and they just ignored it?
Okay, here's another thing. Yeah, there's a theory about that, which is that sometimes people, there's that case in New York where a woman got murdered, and not only people didn't answer the cries of help, some people even watched from their window, and then they were kind of minding their business, they say. But I think it's interesting that he just saw on the ground 3 coins making like a triangle and then some other things in there. And then we see him put that down, and he's going to come up with this idea. There's been 3 murders now, right? And in the graphic novel, Gull explains that he's doing a ritual because, London has 5 monuments that intersect into a pentagram, and then at the center is St. Paul's Cathedral. That
was that carriage ride.
Right.
That lasted like 40 pages, but it was also incredibly engrossing. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And here he just has 3 points, and all of a sudden he's going to start talking about, I think this makes a pentagram. It's like, how do you know that? There's only 3 points. Like, he was writing it down on his journal. All of a sudden, he puts 3 circles, and then all of a sudden, the next they cut to the body and cut back to his notepad, and he already has like 2 other points in there. It's like, where did those come from? I just noticed that.
That's funny.
Yeah, so saying it's a ritual.
Mm-hmm. But as Ryan's pointed out, he hasn't told the women, so that's something to look out for, I guess. If, if he does or doesn't. But I mean, I don't see why he would.
Well, he at one point he tries to keep them safe by telling them to go into a room, and he gives them money and food and says, "Don't leave for like 2 or 3 days or whatever."
Right.
So that other piece of information would have also been nice.
Mm-hmm.
2 bits.
Yeah.
Yeah, pennies on the eyes.
Yeah, I know. He's saying this like, like everybody doesn't know this already.
Yeah.
But you know what? Maybe people didn't back then because people weren't able to read.
Yeah.
Children still worked in factories.
Right.
Well, the thing is, people watching this movie don't know that because it's an old tradition. And so he's putting that out there for us, not for, again, it's one of those things where he's explaining that so people watching the movie will understand why that happens.
I guess it isn't. Wasn't common in the early 2000s to know that. I feel like it should be.
I know for sure that some people would still do that back in the 80s and 70s. When someone died, they would put 2 coins on their eyes just for the sake of keeping the eyes closed, and
Well, I mean, like the other day, I was watching. I was like working on something and listening to All That Jazz, and that came out in I want to say 1979, and he was editing his comedian show. And the person was talking about death, and he said, "No pennies on the eyes for this guy," or whatever. It was one of his jokes.
Right.
So, I mean, it was something that was still happening, at least in the late 70s.
Yeah,
It's still
for sure.
a point of discussion.
Yeah, but not because people believed. It's just it's a weird tradition, right? It's just a weird tradition.
Yeah, it's really rooted in Greek mythology.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You got to go across the river.
And here we have this section with the Elephant Man, which kind of stops the movie a little bit.
What is this in here for?
Well, in the comic book, there is before another woman is killed, he takes her on a coach ride to the house of Joseph Merrick or William Merrick. Mm-hmm. And he asks her to look at the window and see the man. And then he says, "Salutation to Ganesha." So it's just another part of the ritual. He's like...
But later, I think, don't they like kill this guy and he's all like laid out on a table or something?
Well, he did die. I'm not sure exactly when. But I'm not familiar that much with the Elephant Man story. I mean, apart from the Lynch movie.
In this movie, the stonemasons or whatever, like laid him out and cut him all up and killed him or something.
Do they? I guess we'll
find out.
I guess I have to find out. I have to rewatch that section.
It seems like there's some weird random stuff in here.
Well, the Elephant Man is in here because he's also another one of those like things in London that at the time was kind of famous. And like I said, in the graphic novel, Gull explains more about the guy. He takes the woman to look at his window and then kills her while she's looking at him. Offers a salutation to the god Ganesha, which is the elephant god of Indian myth. So it mixes a lot of philosophy and a lot of stuff.
That goes back to the why Alan Moore property is so difficult to put into a movie because the language that he uses and everything that he writes, like every sentence is incredibly deliberate and it is there for a reason. And it's funny because I had to force Joe to read The Watchmen because it was something that I fell in love with in high school. And then, when we met and everything 10 years ago, I was like, you have to fucking read this. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. You have to flip and read this.
It's okay.
And he'd only seen, the movie. And then when he finally sat down and read the book, he was like, oh my gosh, you weren't kidding that there's so much more. You don't think that there is until you actually sit down and read it.
Sure. That's a great point. And also the Watchmen comic at one point starts getting these little chapters at the end of the actual art where you can read pages and pages of stuff like in-world, like magazine articles, right? Where you can read about, the story of the original Watchmen and stuff like that. And this book itself, From Hell, has a companion book, which was published after the novel came out, which goes through every single page of the graphic novel, or the more important pages, I guess, and talks about them and what the references are and what is implied in certain things. And it's a fascinating companion book to the graphic novel.
Yeah, I don't have the companion book, but the graphic novel itself even has like an appendix at the end.
It does, yeah.
So that is one of the things about Alan Moore novels, is that they are incredibly deliberate, and it stinks when you're trying to take something that's so large and put it into a movie, because when you start cutting stuff out, it takes away from the things you do end up with, but also it's like, oh, you can't add everything.
Yeah. This scene was it felt like kind of a breath of fresh air for the movie, because here's somebody who is actually being kind and helpful and trying to help him with his investigation, which is kind of weird considering he's actually the Ripper, but whatever, I guess.
Chase the dragon.
Yeah.
He's definitely closer than he thinks. He's giving him a prescription. So I did have at one point, I don't know if you guys remember, but like 20 years ago or the late 90s or the early 2000s, there was a thing that came out, was called The Diaries of Jack the Ripper. And it was like this book that was discovered, and it was like, oh my God, here's the diary of Jack the Ripper. It was some guy from London who would, he killed prostitutes because he had gotten syphilis from them. And we found a book where he talks about, his life and his wife and the murders and stuff. And then I remember buying the book, reading it, being like, this is pretty amazing if it's true. And then, of course, a couple of years later, it came out that, we just discovered that even though the book was made with original paper from the time, and the ink was written with a quill and all that stuff, it turns out it was a fabrication. It was fake. So, yeah. But so everybody has always been like curious about who the Ripper is. And there's a lot of Ripper books out there, but unfortunately, as much as people suspect certain names, it all comes down to like, we'll never know.
Do you remember when Geraldo Rivera did Al Capone's vault? And it was like an hour-long TV special, and they kept almost opening the vault, but then they didn't, and then they cut to commercials, and it went on for like an hour, and then they finally opened the vault, and it had nothing in it.
That must have been underwhelming.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, the Texas Theater has, which is the place where Lee Harvey Oswald was captured. They had a second story that had a vault, and then they had like a big party. Well, it wasn't like a party, but they had like a big to-do, let's say, about opening the vault. And the part of the big deal about the vault itself was it was put there when Howard Hughes owned the building, because Howard Hughes owned the building at one point. And it took like all night. It was several hours, and we opened the vault and there was nothing in it. It was so fun.
I like the detail that Netley has like these cauliflower ears.
Like he was a boxer or something.
A wrestler, a boxer, yeah.
Yeah, I had to look him up to double check, but he is the person who's Dr. Jekyll Mr. Hyde in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh yeah. Huh, another connection.
Yeah.
So we're recording this on the day that Queen Elizabeth II passed away.
Right.
Yep.
Queen Elizabeth. And Queen Victoria was her great-great-grandmother.
Facebook is full of some people making jokes about it and other people saying, how could you make a joke about that?
Yeah. People are people. They're always going to be criticizing. Too soon, man. Too soon.
Yeah.
No comment.
I remember the Queen Mother when she was still alive. And she was the great-granddaughter of Queen Victoria. No, granddaughter. I don't know. When it comes to like genealogy, it's like, I don't know. Royal families are weird. Have weird genealogic trees.
Oh, yeah. They're not very spread out, are they?
They're not.
Yeah, see, this one cop gets in trouble for talking while he's trying to talk.
Yeah, that's like his team, I guess. It's like his team of cops.
But it also seems like it's all the cops, right? There's a ton of them.
It might be.
Well, maybe he's just the lead detective specifically on this one case.
That could be.
And he's giving the cops
we're
on the
following
beat.
this one case and we're following him, we're going to see it through this perspective.
Yeah.
Right. He's giving them, the beat cops, information on what to look out for. Oh, that's a great shot right there.
Yeah.
So it's funny because the letters Jack Ripper sent to the police, at least the letters that were considered to be, real in the sense that they might have been actually written by Jack the Ripper, because they got inundated by a bunch of as soon as the people found out through the media that the police was getting letters from Jack the Ripper, they started sending letters too, saying, oh yeah, I'm the Ripper. I did it because of this and that. But only a few were considered credible, and they were full of spelling mistakes. And I like the way that they explained that in the story by saying that they were written by the coach driver, who was kind of a poor, illiterate guy.
Right.
One of the coolest things is we always, I don't know if he didn't say it here, but I like it better in the graphic novel when he says, I want you to write a letter, Natalie. And he's like, okay, well, how should we start the letter? Mr. Lusk, blah, blah, blah. Mr. Lusk was one of the chief commissioners. And he says, no, I think it's better we start the letter with, we always start a letter with our address where we're writing from, right? So write from hell. So yeah, I think that was a better line than place where men meet themselves.
Yeah.
But maybe they didn't want to fall into the whole trap of, they said the title of the movie. That's the title of the movie. And maybe it's because I do that. I will be that dummy to go, oh, look, they did it.
We'll do the Brad Pitt thing, pointing to the screen. Cue the credits. That's the movie title.
And it turns out I was the torturer.
Oh, no. That would have been horrible. Yes. Oh, my God. That would have taken so much away. That would have destroyed the whole...
Or the two cops talking to each other and say he was his own torturer.
Dude, I felt weird already with the line of, seems like he was torturing himself.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily, I feel like they delivered it. I'm not an actor. There's a reason why I'm not an actor, because I wouldn't have been able to do that with a straight face. So, yeah.
Right on.
Darn it. Sorry.
It's okay. It happens. We don't edit that stuff out.
Okay. Whatever that she was eating actually did look kind of good. I want to go back to that cornbread.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, we just made cornbread a couple of days ago because we made this big 15-bean soup.
Oh, and awesome.
Yeah. And so Sarah made cornbread and she put hatch green chilies in it. And, it was cheddar cheese. It was so good.
You
I
guys
still have some in the fridge.
You guys might not be the right demographic for this because Jose, you grew up in Portugal, and Catalina,
Right.
might be too young to remember. But there was a restaurant chain called Barbecue Pete's, and they had this stupid gimmick where they would give you cornbread, and they would put a ladder up next to the table, and then they'd go up the ladder, and then they would like ladle the honey onto the cornbread, but they would do it like over their back and backwards and stuff.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like so many work-related problems
Yeah.
could happen.
And every time I've had cornbread in America, it almost tastes like cake. It's already so sweet. I can't imagine putting more honey on that.
Oh yeah.
That is true. We Americans love our sugar.
Yeah.
Biggest drug.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, the baby's missing.
Oh, so this is where they found out the baby was missing. So where was the baby? I mean, where did they take her from, right? We don't...
It's never explained, right? I mean, we've been watching this, and Mary Kelly had the baby, and all of a sudden the baby's gone. I don't know.
Yeah.
She said, no, she was talking to her friends, and she told them that she gave the baby to the grandparents.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, so she went and made sure the baby was safe. I mean, she's not heartless.
Yeah.
So the parents of the woman who married
woman, right.
Albert, yeah.
And then those parents took her to took her to an orphanage or something?
I don't know.
They're going to say that she's in some kind of like building and she was safe. But I can't remember where.
And here's Johnny Depp just pulling rank on this guy
Yeah.
Yeah.
with his Cockney accent, governor.
Yeah. Look like a knob.
Mr. Kidney. That's
Yeah. Right, yeah. So he's Mr. Kidney, so maybe he's the Ripper.
It's a mystery.
Yeah. Or is it Mr. Intestines?
now I want to see a
file
movie called
room.
Mr. Intestines. I remember watching in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a TV show called Jack the Ripper. It had Michael Caine as Inspector Aberline. I don't know if you guys ever saw that. It's an amazing show.
Is it also about Jack the Ripper?
Yeah. It's, well, like I said, Michael Caine is Inspector Aberline.
Yeah.
And Armando Assante is also in that show. It's a really cool show.
Oh.
It does sound pretty cool, huh?
I can't
Yeah,
wait to watch him not solve the case.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, they try to Armando Assante plays Richard Mansfield, who was an actor at the time of the murders, and he was playing an adaptation of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And the audiences were so impressed by his transformation on stage that at one point he was there was a rumor going on that he must be the killer, and it really damaged his acting career.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Just
I don't
because
know
he
why I
was
said wow. I'm just like, yeah, that does sound about right for the audiences of that time period.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a few people who were, in the public eye. I mean, when the piece of a leather apron was found, they went and tried to get there was a mob who tried to get this Jewish butcher because he was known as Leather Apron, and he was kind of a violent man. He had beat up a couple of his wives and stuff, and had been involved in some petty crime. But yeah, they almost lynched him, because at one point they were thinking it must have been a Jewish butcher or a doctor or something. Well, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism at the time.
There's one quick little scene in this movie too where they're like, "Oh, we're gonna get the Jews," and they're marching with these torches, and these people are like peeking out their windows and locking their doors and stuff. But they don't show what actually happened. Did they just go, "Oh, the door's locked," and they gave up and turned around and left?
Yeah, that guy was a real person. He actually organized the Whitechapel, kind of like a watch group, and they went around and they kind of, I don't think they actually harassed. I don't think they actually hurt anybody, but they definitely were harassing people and marching through the streets trying to. For 3 weeks, there were no murders. And then, of course, the last murder is Mary Kelly indoors in a room where it was not outside. So it might have worked in scaring the killer off for a while, that these guys were marching the streets every night.
Of course, in this movie, Mary Kelly is not murdered.
Well, yes. And in the graphic novel, they kind of hint that the woman that was found might not have been Mary Kelly, because I don't know if you ever saw the pictures of Mary Kelly's body, but it's gruesome. I mean, she has no face.
Oh. Yeah. So that's Christopher Lloyd, right?
No, I don't think it is. Yeah, I don't think that's Christopher Lloyd. He's not in the credits for this movie.
He is not in the credits, no.
All right.
Someone who looks like him for sure, yeah.
There's a lot of...
especially from that angle, that we're seeing right now.
There's a lot of American people in this movie with fake accents. But I guess that's only fair because British people are all over our stuff now, right?
Oh, they've always been.
Yeah.
But I feel like, this is terrible, but I feel like British people can fake being American generally better than the other way around.
Yeah, look at Hugh Laurie as House. He has an impeccable... impeccable
So I had
accent.
to look real fast. I had to look up Anne, and funny thing. I remember her from. Oh my God! I had it pulled up. Never mind. I'm sorry. I ruined everything. Love Actually.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I had her pulled up for Love Actually, and she's in a lot of scenes with. Oh my God, young Bilbo Baggins.
Oh, yeah.
What is his actor name?
The guy from The Office,
Arthur
right?
Dent.
Yeah, the guy from The Office and Hitchhiker to the Galaxy. Shoot, I forgot his name. I know who you mean. Now, hang on.
Yeah, but okay, so back to that. I guess it is kind of funny because Martin Freeman, there we go.
Martin Freeman, yes.
She's in a lot of scenes with Martin Freeman. They're like the couple. They're a coupling in that movie, Love Actually. And then, of course, we have old Bilbo Baggins, Ian Holm, in this film as well. That was it.
I think that was a great casting when they did the Hobbit movies, because they do look like a young and old version of the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have just unfortunates.
A very unlucky women.
Yeah.
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 This is where we're getting a lot of exposition, which is, I don't know, it's delivered in kind of an info dump.
Yes. It's
So,
it seems like Mary could have figured this out on her own almost. She didn't even need the inspector.
All she had to
do is look at a painting, and then she would have figured out the whole plot.
Yeah, see, they just mentioned what happened to the baby Alice, that the special branch took the baby and then dumped her in an orphanage as an unknown.
Oh.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Originally, the character of Sir William Gull, they wanted to cast Nigel Hawthorne, but unfortunately at this time, Nigel Hawthorne had terminal cancer, so he turned down the part.
Oh.
I should say Sir Nigel Hawthorne. He was the guy who was in that, Yes, Prime Minister show. Remember that? I don't know if you guys ever saw that here in America.
No.
It was a comedy show. He played aide to the Prime Minister.
Ah.
No Prime Minister.
It's a little unrealistic that Inspector Aberline would be going to all these like castles with, a prostitute from the streets of Whitechapel in tow. But okay, we'll believe for the movie's sake.
Yeah.
There you go. She's showing her the paintings. I guess that museum didn't have a painting of Sir William Gull, Ryan. He was just the Queen's physician at the time.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
She was kind of a bitter person, I guess. She had a broken heart when her husband Albert died. Uh-oh. Here's Albert. Yep. Which would be a huge scandal at the time if this had been true and if he had married. Like, I can't even imagine why he would have done such a thing, like, in secret.
Yeah, imagine if she just said, okay, I'm taking this to the newspaper right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the tabloids. Britain was the place where the tabloids were created.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Then it's like, then the Jack the Ripper would have had to kill everybody in London.
Actually, Sir William was a man in his 70s who had had a stroke at the time. And so it's interesting that Alan Moore wanted to, or Stephen Knight originally. I'm not sure which one of them came with the idea that it might have been Sir William Gull, but the idea that the Queen would need to get her personal physician, a man in his 70s, to go and kill 5 prostitutes when they could have just had cops like pull them up, arrest them, and make them disappear.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where Occam's razor. Let's think of something like that would have happened. That would be simple, the straightest way.
Yeah.
But not necessarily, because the more cops involved, the more people you have to pay off.
Yeah, but they didn't have to know why they were arresting those women, so it would have been much easier that way.
The whole stonemason organization and this coach driver are all in on this one.
For a moment, I thought you were going to say stonecutters.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, also though, they're part of this. Their society is, keeping secrets. Part of the I don't know, the allure, I suppose, or.
Who robs kingfish of their sight? Who rigs every Oscar night?
We do. Yeah, so in the graphic novel, I think what they make it appear is that Sir William Gull was doing this ritual as a way of keeping man's supremacy or over women. Because he keeps having visions in the graphic novel when he has these murders. And funny enough, he sees the future. And after one of the murders, he sees a skyscraper in front of him, which he thinks is like an Olympus of sorts. And then in another vision that he has while he's killing another one, he sees like an office inside that building with women wearing short skirts. And, he's like, what's going on? Is this our future? Is this what we're going to become? Like women almost showing everything and men just sitting here without even a blink. It's like, well, this is not a good future. And I kid you not, at the end of this, Sir William Whitney Gull becomes God.
What?
So, yeah, it's kind of weird. He sees William Blake. He goes on a flight through time and space and history. And, that portrait of Blake, painting of Blake where he sees like the spirit of a flea, which is that big scaly monster with his tongue out. When he shows up to see William Blake, he looks at his hands. William Gull looks at his hands and sees, oh, my skin is scaly and stuff. And it gets really weird. And none of that is in this, of course, because like Catalina was saying, Alan Moore's story, it makes sense while you're reading it, but it's really hard it's a completely different medium, right? Comic books and this kind of writing is very mystical and very deeply layered. And for a movie, it's really hard to translate that. There's an initiation ritual for the Masons.
Yeah, Freemasons.
Yeah.
Not stonemasons.
Right.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, Alan Moore is very into, magic with the K and everything. Oh, yeah. So that kind of, gets put into the writing as well.
He's a wizard with a snake cane.
Yeah. What was I was reading something the other day where someone was saying it's magic with the K, and it felt really silly to me.
It's Aleister Crowley magic.
I don't remember.
Yep. And have you ever read Promethea, another comic book series that Alan Moore wrote? It's very deep into magic and stuff.
Yeah, I haven't. I only have obviously The Watchmen. V for Vendetta, I don't own a copy, but I did read it.
Mm-hmm.
And then From Hell.
Definitely try Promethea because I think you really enjoy that one.
Yeah, and I wanted to read the one about the Lost Girls too. I forget what that one was called.
Lost Girls.
It is called Lost Girls. Okay. Yeah. But Alan Moore graphic novels are really difficult to just come across here in DFW for some weird reason. I don't know why. And if you do come across them, they're incredibly expensive. Like I came across a copy of the Lost Girls and it was like $75.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can find them at a relatively excessive price, maybe on Amazon or, but there's all sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm one of those weirdos who I like to find most of the time I like to stumble across it because then it means it was meant to be this copy of me. I
get it. I totally get it. And some people don't want to support Amazon, which is okay too. I mean, everybody has their own ideas.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely let up because we had to order a bunch of our books of blood in order to get the correct copies. We had to order them online. So I'm not as weird about it as I was.
Right. Oh, shit. Here comes the kidney.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. That's Mr. Kidney to you. It looks like Jell-O.
I like it.
From Hell.
That's the second movie name check in the film.
But you could tell British tabloids were having a field day with this. The media was crucifying the police. I saw a cartoon from the time where they had it was a drawing of a police officer with a blindfold and a bunch of guys with knives and capes tippy-toeing around them, saying how clueless the police was in finding the Ripper, and all the. They were just,
Well, I mean, you got to sell papers.
Yep.
The more papers you sell, the more sensational it is, the more papers you will sell.
Yeah. Of course.
Yay, capitalism.
Yep. There's Inspector Aberline again. Yeah, I mean, I have some of the original serialized publications of From Hell. It came out in a magazine called Taboo, which was published by Stephen Bissett. And I still have 2 or 3 of those that have the original, chapters. It was an anthology, so you get a few pages of a story, then a few pages of another story, and and so on and so on. And there were a few pages of each chapter came out in one of those Taboo magazines. So, and then later it got its own release, different chapters. Actually, the copy on my desk is one I got from Fantagraphics. So I got that and the companion book from a Fantagraphics sale, where I got this for half price, and it was just, I think it was even less than half price. I think they were just trying to clear some stock, and it was really cheap, so I bought both of them. And it's amazing. I think everybody should own a copy of this and read Alan Moore. Yeah, the appendix was called at the time From Hell, The Dance of the Gull Catchers, and has a guy with a net running around a circle of gulls trying to catch them.
Yeah. We need one of those in our D&D game.
Yeah, Jonathan, no.
Yeah.
I think so too. And here's another one of those tropes in movies where it's the two characters that have sexual tension, all of a sudden the guy just throws her against the wall and kisses her.
Yeah.
And it's that's so awkward.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's awkward if you're wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
It's he recognized Inspector.
In movies, people are never wrong.
Yeah, it's like in Highlander 2. Okay, I'm bringing up a deep cut here, but Highlander 2.
That's the worst Highlander.
I know. Well, have you seen 3?
VHS, but we haven't watched it.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's these 2 guys come from another planet to kill, Christopher Lambert,
Right.
Duncan MacLeod. And there's a big fight, and there's a woman who Duncan MacLeod just met, and literally 20 minutes ago, they just met. She came over to him while he was getting into his car, and she's like, I need your help. And so there's a big fight, and a whole bunch of things explode. And then he goes back to her, and he puts her against the wall in an alley, and just they make love right there. He just pulls down his pants, she pulls up his skirt, and they just do it right in an alley with burning cars and stuff.
Oh.
And I'm like, that is so awkward. That is so forced.
Yeah.
It's just, it was a thing that used to happen in movies. Like, he's so amazing that she has to jump on him and do him right there. It's like, no. And this is kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is funny that it's true that was a whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's also why we don't tell girls anymore, oh, that boy's making fun of you because he likes you. We don't do that anymore.
Right.
For that reason. Only that one reason.
Yeah.
Because of movies. Oh, we're bringing up the kidney again.
Yeah. Oh, the kidney in that box, his name was Ben.
Totally a red herring here, but
Sorry. When I was little, I used to only think that red herring was in reference to the Scooby-Doo, the little, when they were kids.
Oh, yeah, Scrappy-Doo.
Because they had, Scrappy-Doo, because they had that kid, red herring.
Yep.
And then as I got older, I realized, oh no, this is an actual actual that's used for, in mysteries, blah, blah, blah.
Who's Red Herring?
It was a redheaded kid that.
It was literally a redheaded character.
Yeah, it was
that must have been
what's the
added
name of the guy?
after I watched that show then.
Oh, it was much more kiddie cartoon version of Scooby-Doo. I watched that too.
Yeah, it was when they were children.
What's the name of the guy from the Scooby-Doo gang?
Fred?
Fred? Yeah, every time there was something going on, a mystery, the first thing Fred would say is I think I know who did this. I have a red herring. And it's it would be the kid, just because he didn't like the kid and was kind of a bully.
Yeah, so this kid who was literally just a redheaded kid who went to school with them or whatever was named Red Herring. That was his name.
It was a pup called Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pup called Scooby-Doo. That was a show.
Oh,
when
so
they were
Scrappy
kids.
wasn't alive then.
Yeah, and Shaggy didn't smoke dope.
Well, they never
he was a
actually
kid.
never actually showed him doing that.
That's true. I wonder why people always think that Shaggy's a stoner.
Because he was eating dog treats all the time.
Yeah, Scooby snacks.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
He had the munchies. He was always wanting to eat sandwiches, and people would steal his sandwiches out of his hands.
I think this one is Catherine.
Yeah, she's like, sure, do you have any grapes?
Yeah, right. What else you got in there?
Yeah.
You got a place? Yeah, this alley.
Oh, can I oogle your knife collection?
Or be like Julia. I thought we'd try the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not even going to pretend like there's a bed in here.
Hey, but it was working.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it did work.
Props to Julia. She's just that smooth.
Yeah. And those guys were that desperate too.
Oh. I'll say yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, not like there's anything wrong with Julia, but I just mean desperate.
I think the grapes also add a little bit to the serial killer kind of MO, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. Sorry. I mean it in a positive way. I know I'm not supposed to use the word cute to describe horror movies, but yeah.
Yeah.
And
so she almost got away.
Lipsky was a slur for Jewish men at the time in London.
Oh.
And there was a report that Jewish men saw some schlubby-looking dude with one of the victims on the night she was murdered.
Oh.
Yeah, so they referenced that with this scene.
Oh. I thought that was his name. Now I know different.
Yeah, no. It's like calling a German guy a Kraut.
Yeah. You know, some of those things are getting lost. Getting lost to time, right? Like I'm in a lot of Sega Saturn groups.
That's good.
And people use the word Jap all the time to describe like Japanese games.
That's
not
just
to shorten it. And I try to tell them like, hey, that's a slur. You can't say that. And they're like, no, it isn't. I'm like, yeah, it is. It started in like World War II. It's like, okay, old man or whatever.
Yeah. It's kind of ridiculous that people don't want to, offer just general respect to other people. Mm-hmm. I mean, Joe and I were just talking about, because we were watching Peacemaker, and like Peacemaker himself, obviously he's not too up on top of what is the correct language to use.
Oh, yeah.
But they told him like not to use the term Oriental, and he didn't know that. And Joe also didn't know that. And I was like, oh yeah, well, it's really disrespectful. And here's all the reasons why. Yeah. And he was like, I had no idea.
Because
it just puts make a mental note. Don't use that.
Asian people into one blob.
Well, sometimes people go a little too far and misinterpret some things. I mean, I saw the exact opposite happen where someone was saying something on Reddit. They mentioned like having a chink in the armor, and some guy was like, you can't say chink, it's a slur.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, a chink in the armor means a dent in the armor. It's not,
There's also this goop that you spray, that you squirt in between logs, and it hardens like cement, right, to insulate between the logs, and it's called permachink. And when we started having this language filter on realtor listings, and it would say that's a fair housing violation. You can't say that.
Okay,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
because even though that's the name, is that like an actual that's actually the name?
Yeah, it's a brand name.
The brand name. Okay, thank you. Oh, that's weird, huh?
So. The first one, there was a witness, so that he didn't have time to finish. So the other woman also left the room, and this is the fourth victim.
Uh-oh.
Time to speed up the movie a little bit.
This is Special Branch.
Oh. I thought it was the Nickel Gang again.
Yeah.
I guess I was wrong.
So this became known as the double event. The two women got murdered on the same night.
Mm.
And this is the one where they're going to write on the wall, the Jews are the ones who will not be blamed for nothing.
Yeah.
Which the chief commissioner actually had the crime scene closed off for 5 hours. He wanted to go there himself to check out what was going on, because at this point the chief commissioner was like, we're not catching this guy. Let me go there and see what's going on. And as soon as he got there, he looked at that and he was like, we got to wash that stuff out. And at the time, even some of the cops were like, it's kind of evidence. Shouldn't we take a photo? He's like, no, this will cause riots. Jewish people will get, And he might have been right, but it was washing evidence.
But it doesn't fit with this story when he says that.
No, yeah. I mean, they weren't even sure nowadays if it was just a graffiti that was already there, like an anti-Semitic graffiti, or if it was something written by the Ripper.
Well, I mean, in here, he was he's part of the Masons, and he wanted him to find somebody to blame, like the Jews. But now he's like, oh, you got to erase that or there'll be riots. It isn't, I mean, because they're trying to cram this story into historical facts, and those two things don't fit together.
Yeah, he thinks he was using them almost like a scapegoat at one part in the movie, and now he's like concerned that they might get targeted.
Yeah,
so I agree,
exactly.
That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Mm.
Well, in the real life, I think he just knew that if that graffiti was out at the murder scene, that there would be riots, because there were some, like that guy who, created a militia, a neighborhood watch to go around Whitechapel and, break windows and stuff and say that the Jews were doing it. So it could have become much worse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, people don't really act, and think things through when you're scared.
Yeah.
and people do tend to run in packs, especially when you're scared.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, of course. A mob is, mob
Right.
mentality is scared and stupid.
Yep.
There were later Whitechapel murders. So, people think that, Mary, like I mentioned at the beginning, I mean, how do we know that Mary Jane Kelly was the last, murder? Because I guess the modus operandi of some of the other murders that happened in Whitechapel shortly after this were not the same, but some people assume the crimes probably stopped because maybe the killer moved somewhere else or died or ended up in prison because he got caught over something else, or maybe even immigrated to the United States. There are some names floating around in ripperology of possible suspects. And one of them was an American guy who he emigrated to the United States, and he was a kind of a petty criminal. And once he left London, the crimes stopped. So always people like to go around and cross-reference those things and be like, maybe he was the killer. But there were another 4 murders that happened after the canonical 5. Rose Millett, Alice Mackenzie, the Pinchin Street Torso. That's kind of gruesome. I just got chills reading that. And Francis Coles. So Rose Millett was found strangled in High Street in December of '88. And so they thought that she might have been strangled. Alice Mackenzie was murdered. 2 stab wounds to the neck, and her carotid artery had been severed. And there was a cut that extended from her left breast to her navel. Some of the examining pathologists even thought that this was a Ripper murder, although some of his colleagues who had seen the Ripper victims disagreed. This is off of the Jack the Ripper Canonical 5 Wikipedia page. The Pinchin Street Torso was a decomposing headless and legless torso of an unidentified woman aged between 30 and 40, discovered in a railway arch in Whitechapel, Pinchin Street. It was a torso. I mean, she was mutilated.
Yeah.
And there was another one, a 25-year-old prostitute, Frances Coles, was found February 1891 in Whitechapel. Throat had been cut, but her body was not mutilated. So, there's other alleged victims, but, apart from that, I mean, my question is, how do we know that he really stopped at 5?
Right.
I guess it's just people want this to have some sort of closure, right? They don't want to. People get tired of reading about, a murder on the loose, and they just want to believe that, whatever happened was just isolated and stopped. Here we got more visions by Eberlein.
So here he had a vision of Mary Kelly getting killed, but she doesn't get killed.
Yeah, I mean,
all of his other visions were real. I mean, were actual things that happened.
Yeah, I mean, the movie sucks. I mean, the guys. I told you that this is never in the graphic novel, and Eberlein was not a psychic, and he, didn't do opium. So this is just creative liberty, bad creative liberty, I think, from the writer. Like, I cannot explain bad writing, Ryan.
They need to bring back Ben the Kidney.
Yes.
Man, what an awful time to be alive.
Yeah.
And to be a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got Ada and Mary Kelly in the same room. So what they're going to do here is they're going to have them swap dresses in a bit, and so make us believe that the woman who got killed was Ada instead of Mary Jane Kelly. That she went back to Ireland to raise baby Alice.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that happy ending, though. I really do. But
it's not that happy. I mean, he was supposed to go to her and he didn't.
Right.
Which is that's kind of a lame sad sack kind of an ending.
Yeah.
And then he just ODs. I don't know.
In the graphic novel, though, there is a vision of Sir William Whitney Gull as he ascends to godhood at the end as he dies. There is he sees those visions of his spirit like floating around London and going back in time for going to this and that place. And one of the places he does fly over is a woman with 2 children in Ireland. And he says, "Who's that woman? She seems familiar." And then the woman goes like, "You get out of here and go back to hell where you came from." And then, he flies off and then he becomes one with God or whatever. And then it cuts back out to him dead in an asylum. So there is that kind of hint that it might have been Mary Kelly who actually did survive. That there was another woman in the room that was killed instead of her.
She says it's not safe for you to go out.
Yeah.
Because she says that to her, she's gonna die.
Right.
So why do they switch dresses? I mean, I understand plot-wise but why does she decide to do that?
I'm not sure. I think because one was resting and the other one wanted to go out or something. I don't know.
Oh.
Because they're girlfriends, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
You just share clothes.
Yeah,
It's a slumber party.
They just met.
Slumber party in Whitechapel.
Yeah. No, I'm serious. That really could have been their thought process.
Yeah.
They're girls. Girls do this.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, your dress is pretty. I want to try it on.
Yeah.
See, Ryan, we need the female gaze on the movie to understand it.
That's wrong, God.
Not really. I'm just saying this is how men write women. So
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, this is where it all comes unraveling here. He's going to confront Sir William Gull.
Yeah.
You saw that the guy who let him into the house was outside, and the door is to, I think, Johnny Depp's back right now.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is one of those things like The Shining, doors and hallways that kind of move. It's like he's talking to William Gull. He's going to confront him. He's going to say, "Yes, I am the killer," blah, blah, blah. And then he's going to be like, "You're not going to see the 20th century." And all of a sudden, a guy comes up behind him and hits him over the head. And it's like, we don't see that guy come in ever. And there's a part where Johnny Depp actually is looking towards the door area and he doesn't see the guy come in either. So it's like, where does this guy come from?
Yeah.
Is it like a secret door?
Because because the camera pulls in tight, that means that anything can happen on the outside of the frame.
Right. It's like when they show like someone getting smacked just out of frame, and it's like if the guy was there, they would have seen him standing right next to them, right?
Yeah.
That probably calls. It sounds like for Joe to ramble about the 180 rule.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh,
which is,
yeah.
So if we're on one side of the table, so to speak, and we're looking at this one, we're like, okay, we know that this is, we're here, you're there. Sometimes if you mess with the angle incorrectly, our brain picks up on it and we go, oh, that's wrong. But if they hide it well enough, we don't know exactly why it's wrong. He was complaining about it the other day. I don't even remember what we were watching.
Well,
watching something, and he was complaining about it.
Nightbreed does that in the scene with Boone in the cell and Eigerman, and they went and fixed it by swapping the film around, and then Eigerman had in the director's cut.
Like right now, he's looking at the fireplace, and he should be seeing the archway to the door.
You're
to
right.
his right. Yeah.
Right. So if we were facing him, the door is behind us.
Right.
Well, I mean, not Ian Holm. The door is now in front of us.
I don't like the way that they make his eyes go black right now.
Yeah.
And kind of gives it a supernatural, feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
They do that in like these flashbacks of him like cutting the women and stuff. And it's like, I don't know how to feel about this. Makes him seem like he's possessed with something, right?
He's kind of like Bilbo who wants his ring back.
That scene, that really made me jump out of the chair.
Why shouldn't I take it?
Okay.
Yeah, see.
Well, maybe because since it's called From Hell, they wanted to people to think that there was some sort of demonic presence or demonic infestation. Yeah. I don't know.
Right. You're not going to see the 20th century.
Uh-oh.
Bam. And
here comes the guy.
Yeah. And he comes from the other side of the room, too. He comes from the left side of the room.
I see what you guys are saying. That is so weird.
He was hiding under the rug.
Maybe. This is hiding behind a bookshelf or something. Flip nose. Wow.
Yeah.
In the graphic novel, he actually says that to Netley after he kills Mary Jane Kelly.
So he
says, I did it, Netley. I delivered the 20th century.
The one action scene in the whole movie.
Yeah, there's a the coach chase.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell? It's have to have action scene. Have to have a chase.
I think that'd be pretty cool. Coach chase, that's fun. I like it.
And bam! I like how he headbutts the guy. He's totally knocked out.
Wow.
And this guy's gonna
blood splatter. All right.
He's gonna get thrown out halfway and then smushed and dragged across the concrete or across the stone
His
street.
face is gonna get ground up by the wheel.
Yeah.
Bam, 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 bam. And there we go.
Bam,
I love it. Yeah.
Sparks.
And then
Runaway
smush.
Carriage. I was like, get out of the cart. It's going to explode. Big fireball.
Yeah, if those sparks hit the gas tank, you're done for.
If those sparks hit the horses, they're going to explode. Hello, what's all this then?
Yeah. None of my business.
And
so why is the coachman dead?
The coachman?
Is he dead right there?
No, it's another. They cut to another shot of the coach with William Gull.
Yeah, that's a different coach. Never mind.
Yeah. He's in front of the house the room that has Mary Kelly.
We don't even know who was driving this coach, right? They never even showed anybody sitting out there with the horses.
It was an inflatable autopilot.
Like an airplane?
Yeah.
Inflatable coach drivers. Complete with top hat.
Yeah.
Cape.
Right. Yeah, and every time there's one trope in this movie. Every time they let the steps down of that carriage, it's like the sound of this loud sound of sharpening knives or something.
Oh,
ching,
yeah.
ching, ching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool sound. It's really scary.
I kind of like it. I know it's silly. It's silly because it's ridiculous.
It's just
There's
couple
no way
of steps,
it could actually make that sound, but it is just for dramatic effect.
Yeah, it would be funny if it was like a motorhome, in a movie.
There's a painting from an artist of the time who was also suspected of being the killer. And they this frame of a guy reaching out to his medical bag sitting at the end of a bed with a woman. That's one of his paintings. I forgot the name now, but if I find it, I'll send it over to you for the show notes.
All right.
And yeah, in real life, this was a murder that he wasn't working in the streets or in an alley. He could just take his time and just really get in there,
So this is what the other ones would have been if he had all of his free time.
Yeah, probably. Like I said, the streets were being watched right now with people, walking around with torches and stuff. And so I guess for 3 weeks he couldn't kill anybody. And he ended up doing his last murder inside a room.
Oh.
Here's going to hallucinate that he's doing an anatomy lesson. I think almost all of the organs of Mary Kelly were extracted. Her abdomen was emptied out. The intestines were placed near the feet. The breasts were cut and put under the head, almost like a pillow. It was pretty gruesome.
Jeez.
And the heart was thrown in the fire or in the room, I think. This is the part where he says, how tough a muscle is that it's hard to even like burn it.
Yeah.
Of course, in the graphic novel, he starts hallucinating here as well. He starts getting some weird visions. Yeah, this is really, really gruesome. Ew. Okay, I got to say, the heart should be still beating, and they totally missed that because the heart can't beat outside of the body.
But even if he already killed her before?
Yeah. I mean, the heart can beat outside of the body. The cells keep beating because they're wired to beat that way.
Really? That's crazy.
Yeah. The cells themselves have like this impulse, and the muscles keep like contracting even after the heart is outside of the body.
Oh no.
Like, oh, thank you. You like me. You really like me.
Yeah.
He had to kill 5 because 5 was a Masonic number, or so they say.
Right.
Of course, in the movie, they didn't think of doing the hallucinations that Alan Moore did because that would mean that he would be looking at a skyscraper and an office building with people walking around. And
yeah.
But it would be more confusing to the general audience because one of the big problems when you're making a movie and stuff, especially like a big budgeted film like this, they want it to be easily, digestible for people, and people get confused. Like they legitimately do get confused, especially since Clive Barker runs into that problem all the flipping time. Where with Nightbreed and pretty much with everything that he had made movie format, people don't want to say, oh, this is fantasy and horror all at the same time.
Yeah.
Because when the general audiences think fantasy, they think like elves. They don't realize that fantasy is actually a really large umbrella. So yeah, there's no way that they could have included all of that information about those images that he was having in his head.
yeah, why don't you guys argue about the murderer in front of everybody?
Yeah.
Has to be a big confrontation, like he's trying to strangle the chief commissioner.
Yeah. So
What?
do you think that when he ODs at the end that it was done by these Freemasons?
That could be. I think it's just that he's so heartbroken that he just kind of does himself in,
That's probably more likely. It's just they do leave it open to that. I mean, why would they just let him live knowing that? When they kill everyone else, who knows?
And here he's going to see that the hair on the body is not red, it's brown, so it's not her. Or at least he thinks it might not be her. I mean, he does have kind of a vision, right? Of I guess I'm kind of mixing together the graphic novel and the movie. Sorry, I'm getting a little confused.
No, I hate when that happens. Like Joe is convinced that that scene in Nightbreed, in Cabal, where they go to that abandoned restaurant or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
He's convinced that he's actually watched that in film format.
Oh.
And I'm like, no, dude, I think what happened is your brain knows the film so well that you filled it in.
Yeah.
You know? It's the same thing for you, Jose. Your brain knows it so well, you're filling it in.
In every version of the movie where he kills Cheryl Ann, it's in the Midian.
It's in the field.
Outside of Midian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so obviously I was just talking out of my ass a while ago. I said, oh, he's it's a broken heart and he does himself in. I mean, obviously he knows that she's alive.
Right, she left him a letter.
Yeah, I think it's just meant to say that
but broken heart because he can't go to her, right?
Right, yeah.
That's what I thought you meant.
Right. Well, that
makes sense.
Look at all those dead people on the steps.
Yeah.
Why are they lying around like that?
Well, they're poor. They're homeless.
Yeah.
Or houseless, they call them now. Yeah, the queen is not happy. Like, how ghastly.
She didn't know that she had to be specific and say, you cannot be doing rituals.
Yeah.
Right.
Just get rid of the problem, guys.
It's her fault for not being specific.
Right on. And here's the ceremony.
So maybe this is how this guy does get into Deader, huh?
Oh, yeah. Winter.
He just lives for fucking ever.
Yeah.
God damn it, I did it again. And then I made it worse. Damn it. Shoot.
What? No, I liked it. What? Yeah. So he's a descendant of Le Marchand.
Yeah.
Or he's one of those ancestors that happens to look exactly like the guy in Deader.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a trope that gets used.
Yeah. Like.
Oh, here we go.
This is like we figure that, oh yeah, he's way beyond his delusion now. I like the gavel sounds show the procedure being done on his skull.
Mm-hmm.
And Aberline got to watch.
He's like, you happy now?
No.
Jeez. He doesn't even have any clothes. He's just sitting on a pile of hay.
Aw.
Yep. Again, this is not a lobotomy. The guy in the commentary track says this is a lobotomy. It's not a lobotomy. Lobotomies were done through the occipital hole. Like they would stick a very sharp, metal instrument through the little corner of your eye next to your nose, and that would reach your frontal lobe and just kind of scrape a little bit off.
Yeah, because it had to be in that specific part of your lobe.
Yeah.
It's called a lobotomy.
Yeah. Well,
But
I wonder how much trial and error they had to do for that.
Oh man, it was a mess there for a lot.
Yeah. Bit of trivia: the guy who actually standardized the lobotomy was a Portuguese doctor called Egas Muniz, and he actually got the Nobel Award for that.
Oh,
wow!
I know, it's just horrible because lobotomies were just not.
No.
They were just not helpful. I mean, they were just helpful for the people around the person because the person would turn into like a freaking vegetable.
Right.
But not helpful for the person at all because they would become incontinent, confused. Sometimes they would, lose themselves and sometimes they'd go blind. It was just terrible. It was a terrible procedure.
Right.
It was just a way of making sure that people who were inconvenient would become more peaceful.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want people to be compliant and you don't care about the people themselves, then,
Oh, but for sure. Yeah. But for sure, the guy who really like misused the lobotomy procedure was an American doctor who would do like 60 of those a day. I forgot his name, but yeah.
God. How did she afford this house?
Ask me no questions, I'll tell you no lies. Maybe it was the family house.
Yeah.
And she also found a Nevada salon.
Oh, right, like the one she grew up in.
Yeah. And she also has beautiful, luxurious hair.
Yeah. And her daughter came up from that really dangerous-looking cliff. I'm like, get away from there.
Yeah, the American doctor was Walter Freeman.
Oh.
He was the doctor who really misused the orbital lobotomy.
Yeah.
Ice pick lobotomy.
Ugh.
Lots of women, right?
Yeah.
Patients.
Diagnosed with hysteria, probably.
Probably.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, it's more women. I want to say it was more women than men.
Yeah.
Hysterical women.
Yeah. But I mean, you can
look up Walter Freeman.
Say that women were hysterical about literally anything.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's like saying they're a witch.
He's got his 2 bits, governor.
Yeah.
It's like, he finally chased the dragon.
You just didn't slap his face
He
hard
finally
enough.
caught the dragon.
He finally caught Puff the magic dragon.
Yeah.
Just put the 2 bits.
Okay, but his hair's different. So I guess they're trying to tell us that time has passed.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a gray streak now.
If you just slap him a little harder, he'll wake up.
And here's the line that spawned 1,000 memes. Good night, sweet prince.
Uh,
And I like that the bits have Victoria's effigy on them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, directed by the Hughes brothers.
Yeah.
Woohoo. I still think that the graphic novel is much superior to the movie. I think this is a product of, the Knots decade. The movie didn't need to have all these like weird things added to it. But I think for a while, it took the Hughes brothers like a few years before they would do another movie because this movie was not very critically well received.
oh.
That's really, really rough too, because when y'all told me it was them, they were the ones who did it. And I was like, man, because Dead Presidents is just such a good movie. I actually finally watched it this past year for the first time. And I was like, oh my God, there's so many references to this film. Just like that's normal now, these references. And I never knew this is where it came from.
I don't think I've seen that.
It's so good. It was so insanely good.
I have to watch it.
But yeah, that must have been really difficult because it seems like it was quite an undertaking for them.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's just so much stuff. Like, it looked great.
Yeah. The cinematography was pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, it looked amazing, and there were so many good things about it. But the story is pretty,
And they got top tier actors.
Yeah.
When they were approached to make this movie was sometime in 1996, and I think they were in a deal with Disney, and Disney gave them like 5 or 6 screenplays, and they said, "Hey, pick one to make." And so they picked From Hell. So that's how they got the gig.
Oh.
Yeah. And of course, born in Detroit, their first movie in 93 was Menace to Society.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched that one yet. I need to watch that.
With the number 2 in it?
Yes.
Even though it's not a sequel.
Right? Yeah, but
it's like the style of it's the style of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're interested in Jack the Ripper, I'm sure there's a lot of books out there that you can find. There's also a big pile of pages on Wikipedia that you can probably look up. There's a page for Frederick Aberline. There's a page for Jack the Ripper. So just go on Wikipedia and look that up. I mean, I'm not going to put a bunch of like links to Wikipedia pages on the show notes. You can just go there and look for that. But yeah.
Wikipedia whole time where you just go click, 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 click.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if anyone else does that.
And then you can choose. There's this fun option on Wikipedia that I found out the other day, which is you can pick a bunch of articles and put them together in like a little book that you can print. So there's a functionality where you can print entire articles and related articles, and it prints out as a little book.
Oh.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
But of course, nobody can print the entire Wikipedia at this point. Probably stack it up to the moon.
I think that this Marilyn Manson song kind of ruins the tone of the movie.
Yeah.
That was a really bad choice.
Yeah,
well,
I don't like it.
This is something that Joe and I talk about a lot, is that in the early 2000s, because we were still selling CDs, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You would make so much money if you were able to have, a soundtrack or at least a song. So if they had this song by a famous artist, they would be able to, get more people interested and kind of like open up their audience, So yes, it is incredibly out of place. But I
still
think
buy CDs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I still put them on the computer. I burn them onto the computer, but I almost never buy stuff on iTunes.
Right. But I mean, that way you own the music, kind of like we obviously still buy, VHSs and records and stuff like that. You know that you own it then because you literally have it physically there. But yeah, this song is really out of place.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, again, it was the time, the decade of the knots 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, plus Depp and Manson are friends, so,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, there, at least it wasn't a horror movie that was rated PG-13 and full of really terrible CGI. That was a big style choice at the time.
Yeah.
I would say probably.
I would say
if you guys haven't, go ahead.
Sorry, I would say past like the 2000. I guess 2006, 2007, and then onward is when that was more happening. I don't know. I don't remember.
I was thinking like 99. Like you had Alien versus Predator. You had the Van Helsing. And,
oh God, Van Helsing.
Yeah. Underworld.
I think it's a fun movie. I just call that a guilty pleasure with the crossbow, automatic crossbow thing.
You gotta just
ridiculous.
Turn off your brain.
It's just so ridiculous, but it's so
things
funny.
are happening.
Yeah, well, if I turn off my brain, I'm just gonna go to sleep.
Yeah.
But what were you saying, Jose?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, if people are interested in seeing more of this Ripper stuff, go check out the version from 1988. It's a miniseries. It's got Michael Caine as Inspector Aberline.
Oh.
And I really enjoyed that. That was when I remember seeing that on TV in the late 80s. And I thought it was a really good show. And, give it a try.
I like Michael Caine in The Muppet Christmas Carol, too. Probably playing a really similar character.
Yeah, with the top hat.
Yeah.
Right on.
Michael Caine is great, just pretty much always. Like even his old, 70s. We tried to tell River that because we were watching the Batmans, where he was Alfred, and I was like, yeah, he was an action star in like the 70s, and she didn't believe me. Like,
that movie with the big shotgun, right? I forgot the name of that movie. I don't know.
And that's the end of the credits.
Yay!
All right.
We made it.
Yeah. That movie was truly from hell.
I just want to say, to its credit, the camera work is pretty cool. I like the moody lighting. Johnny Depp does a good job.
I like the red and black sort of color palette, too.
Sure. Mm-hmm. If you like the movie, you're probably going to love the graphic novel. It is a black and white graphic novel, by the way. So if you're into the whole colorful thing of a movie, maybe the graphic novel might not be your thing if you're into flashy stuff. But it's a story. It's a story that really gets to you in the graphic novel. The art is almost incidental. It's black and white. It's pretty simple, but it's the actual story. It's a huge tome when it's collected, and every time I look at it, every time I've read it, I pretty much read it in like a couple of sittings, just because it's hard to put it down once you start reading it.
Yeah, unlike the movie, which is easy to put down.
Yeah, right. So, thanks, guys, for being with us and watching the movie with us. I hope you guys had a fun time.
Yeah. Coming next, we'll be doing some more news and interviews, more commentary classics. I put up Hellraiser on Wednesday. So if you'd missed that the first time around way back in 2016, it's back. And so we'll be doing Hellbound next week. And Jericho Squad is coming back again. I think we're going to be recording that in 2 weeks, and then it'll air the next week after that. Visions of Heaven and Hell. And we'll be covering Hellraiser Hulu. So from what we've talked about now, it sounds like we've got 3 different episodes dedicated to that, right? Because we'll have a spoiler-free discussion. We've got another secret thing that we're not going to talk about yet, and we've got the audio commentary we'll do for it.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
And Catalina, you started another Barker and Briefs reading the Hellbound Heart, right?
Yep. I have 3 chapters up right now. They're releasing every Tuesday and Thursday until the first week of October, because Halloween's Hellraiser comes out on the 7th, October 7th.
Yeah,
that's right.
September.
And we're re-releasing the Hellbound Laments.
Oh,
again.
yeah. Yep. And
we're just going to throw everything we have.
Everything Hellraiser. Yeah.
Again.
That's kind of what we're doing too.
Might as well.
Yeah. All Hellraiser all the time.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, Catalina?
Not
personally, but
yeah, on all the social medias, it's just Catalina Querida, Querida, or just Little Spark Films. All the social medias. Not TikTok. We're bad at the TikTok, but everything else we have.
There you go.
Little Spark tweets on Twitter, right?
Yeah, but Little Spark Films should bring it up anyway.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I think most of it all just, we try to keep it uniform.
And you said you've got 3 reels already up for the Hellbound Heart, right?
Yes, I have all 3 chapters on the YouTube.
Wow.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
or they can find you also on YouTube. Okay, awesome. Nice choice of outfits for the Barker and Briefs, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. This was fun.
Yay.
I got to finally finish reading from Hell.
Yep. All right, guys, and this podcast having no beginning will have no end.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. Watch for our annual Kickstarter fundraisers to get some cool stuff, and you can buy t-shirts on our TeePublic store. Go to teepublic.com and search for BarkerCast.
Thanks for listening.